Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We've got Yanks on the call for another one of our Lost Caverns of Ixalan limited set reviews. Today, we're going to be going over all of the artifacts and giving them a rating between, I should say, colorless, not just artifacts, but colorless cards, giving them a rating between 1 and 5. If you missed our introduction to the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, please go check that out. That's the most important video where we go over the new and returning mechanics, draftable archetypes, and everything you need to know to get into your local pre-releases and playing limited on Arena. Welcome back, Yanks.
Good to be back here as we look at artifacts and lands and artifacts which are more relevant than usual.
Yeah, they are going to be a lot more relevant. I'm pretty excited. I think everything's going to get like a little bit of a boost just because we really need these things to tap, to exile, to, just everything. We want really, and their permanence for the graveyard for all of the Dedids.
Yes.
So not going to be a bad place to be. So let's dive in with Buried Treasure, 2 mana for an artifact treasure. You can sack it to add 1 mana of any color. You can also pay 5, exile it from your graveyard to discover 5, activate only as a sorcery. So you get both things, which is really cool because this will also Descended, and this will also help with your Fathomless Descent. And when you don't need that anymore, you can go ahead and discover 5. I think this is great.
Yeah, and also while it's sitting in your graveyard, if you need something to craft, you can use this as well.
Yep. And so you kind of get the benefit of temporary ramp, right? So you pay the 2 now, but then you get 4 next turn, which is kind of cool. I think this is a good card, but it's an enabler card, so there will be a good chunk of decks that are not interested in this. But if you do want any sorts of these enabling shenanigans, this will be a great option. And it enables a ton of what the set wants to be doing. So rating-wise, this feels like a solid 2.5 to me.
I'm a little lower. I have it as a 2, only because we saw so many just like incidental artifacts that I'm not 100% sure I'm looking for more like enablers that don't do much. You might be, and if you really need them, then by all means play this card.
I like it because it's cheap and it does all of those things. And then later it replaces itself with that Discover 5. So I might be a little bit higher on that.
Yep, that's fair.
Let's move on to the Careening Minecart, 3 mana for a 3/3 vehicle. When it attacks, create a treasure token, and it only has to crew for only 1. That's not a terrible rate. I like crew 1. There's a lot of 1/1 tokens. I'm on board with this artifact.
I think this card is fine. I just feel like nowadays we just get 3-drop creatures that do the same without any hoops to jump through.
A full-blown treasure every single time you attack?
Not that specifically, but something as good.
Do you?
I don't know. Every 3-drop has at least 4 abilities, so I assume some of them are at least this good.
You went from all of them to some of them, and I can't think of hardly any that are like not rare.
I mean, there's an uncommon that gives you back a card from your graveyard. That's, I think, better than making treasures.
You're talking about the snake?
The raccoon.
That's conditional, though, right? You have to have like the Fathomless Descent or whatever.
Descent, yeah.
And it's a one-time trigger, so if you play it, then it does nothing. It's just a vanilla 3/3, like some number of the time. I mean, I might be overvaluing the treasure, but like I still think that the treasure is probably better than the sometimes permanent. It's close, but I wouldn't say all of them. I certainly wouldn't say that this is under.
Oh no, it's not. I didn't mean. Maybe I misspoke. I didn't mean all creatures, but we get creatures that do this. Like, so I'm just, if I'm going to jump through the hoop of having to crew it, which isn't hard at 1. But
I mean, this is like the pickaxe, except for instead of the crew, it's the equip cost, right? Instead, and it has a similar ability. It gives the treasure, and we were pretty high on that.
Yeah, it's cost more.
Wasn't it? It was 1 and equip 2.
Yeah, but I mean that's different, right? Because you can find ways to fit in 1 mana versus 3.
Yeah, but this attacks as a 3/3. That does not.
Well, this doesn't either without a creature, just like that does it without a creature.
Yes, but you were saying you can fit it in for less than 3, but you also have to fit in the cost of the creature that you have to cast to put the equipment onto. You're not
But that's true,
balancing that
and that's true
equation
for both of them.
terribly equal.
That's true for both of them. You have to fit in the cost of the creature.
Yes.
So my point is, it is you can very easily find a spot to play 1 mana and 2 mana easier than spending 3 mana at once. So I don't think those are the same thing.
Sure, but the ability is similar, and you were
The ability is
moderately high on that, and you were just saying that like you literally said all 3 drops are this good now. It just doesn't seem like it.
I don't know. We had 3 mana 6. We had a 3 mana 6/6. Like,
that's a rare.
I know it's a rare.
Oh my gosh, Yanks, you're the worst at this.
This feels to me like a card that would have been really good 4 years ago, and now is just going to be meh.
It feels like you're punishing cards because there are other good rares in the format.
I'd be surprised if there weren't at least 5 3-drops I'd rather have than this. Not at rare.
Yeah, I feel like 5 is reasonable. And I think, the top, I don't know, 10 3-drops I would all say are pretty good. Do you have to be the number 1 or 2 3-drop in the format for you to think it's good? Like, where's that line, right? If you're
I don't think the card is bad. I just think this is another example of a card that isn't remotely as good as we might think it is because of how good these things used to be.
Fair enough. I'm willing to give this a pretty high rate. I liked the Gold Vein pick. I really like the new pick. I think the activation guaranteed, getting multiple artifacts. Just with one attack, you're getting, kind of 2 artifacts on the board. I think that's very solid. I don't see myself cutting this. I would say this is a 3 for me.
I've got this at a 2.5 and on the low end of that.
Fair enough. Cartographer's Companion, 3 mana for a 2/1 gnome. When it enters the battlefield, create a map token. This is 2 pieces of cardboard for the cost of 1. It's a little low costed, but you're getting multiple artifacts. So if you're in the business of wanting artifacts, this is pretty premium.
Yeah. The 2 pieces guaranteed for 1 is nice. It's a little overcosted, but it's fine. The map can make up for it a little bit.
Yep. Rating wise, Yanks, what are you thinking?
This is like a 2.
I'm a little higher on it, but it is kind of a split card for me. I think it's a 2.5 in artifact decks and a 1 in the not artifact decks, really. Well, maybe a 1.5.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, there are decks that definitely don't want this card.
Chimil the Inner Sun, 6 mana for a legendary artifact. Spells you control can't be countered. At the beginning of your end step, discover 5. So right away, you're going to kind of get your money's worth. You might just hit like a 2-drop or something, but it would really only take like 2 turns for this to become like net positive mana and card advantage. I don't hate this.
Yeah, the first line is effectively irrelevant, but that doesn't matter. You're replacing your value here pretty quickly. Yeah, just like all Discover, you can get unlucky and could hit like 2-drop, 2-drop, or 2-drop, 1-drop, and then, okay, it takes 3 turns to get your value back.
Fine. I mean, yes and no. I would say 2-drop, 2-drop is still card advantage. Like, I would be willing to pay 5 mana to get, 2 cards out of my deck. Seems okay.
Yeah, I think the card's good.
And I also wouldn't say the first line of text is irrelevant. I get countered in limited a decent number of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's what, 20% of your, 40% of your decks are playing blue, and it's only some number of those have counters. So yeah, it's not completely irrelevant, but it's not particularly relevant for how I'm grading the card.
Yeah, I mean, I give it a little bump, but it's probably not terribly reflective in the score. I'd agree. It's probably like, if I'm torn between, like, let's say a 3 and a 3.5 or something, I would bump it probably for that. But I do get do get countered a lot. Also, I think counters will be a little bit more relevant only because I think the games will be going a bit longer.
Yes, they're also arguably worse in this format because of how much value things can have in the graveyard.
Hmm. That's fair. I
It
was
doesn't
thinking if it's a long format and opponents will be resolving large dinosaur
large.
spells,
True.
that makes me more inclined to run them if possible. But maybe that's just, we'll have to see how that one plays out.
Yeah.
Rating
Yeah.
wise, I think that this is good. I actually think that this could win you the game over a long period of time.
Oh,
So
definitely.
I'm in the like 4 bracket.
Yeah. I think I've got it as a 4. I mean, it's gonna feel really bad if this gets abraded, but that's the case with a lot of big spells, especially big artifacts.
Yeah, it's nice that it happens on the end step. So the chances that they have the Abrade in hand and
Yep.
have the mana open, like you'll probably get your trigger off of this. So I'm happy with
True.
that. Compass Gnome, 2 mana. When Compass Gnome enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card or cave, reveal it, then shuffle and put it on top. We had a card similar to this where you could look for a card, put it on top. It was a 2/1 for 2. I think it had a color though.
Yeah, I know what card you're talking about, but I don't remember. Oh, was it in Strixhaven?
Dune Mover. Yes, chat knows what's up. You guys are good at playing the Nerd Girl Pictionary game. That's a fun game. Yes, Dune Mover is the card I was thinking of.
Yeah, all will be one.
Yeah. And
That's
that
why I
card was
couldn't-
decent. And I think this will be even more decent. That one had Toxic, but I think that the
Yeah.
artifact thing here is a little bit more relevant for me than because it goes with so many things. I'm really happy with this.
I think this card is fine. I do think it's worse than that last one just because Toxic was so critical to that format.
Yeah, there was a lot of decks that didn't really care about Toxic.
Yeah, they generally lost though.
I agree it was good. But I
No,
certainly
but this
played a
card's
lot of
fine.
non-toxic decks.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I didn't play a lot of any decks because I just ran far away from that format as soon as possible.
Makes sense. I like this card. I like it for fixing. I like it for artifacts. And I think most decks, there was white, blue, and red artifact synergy. So I feel like most decks will have something. So getting an extra artifact in there that also helps you fix and hit your land drops is really good. So I'm on board with this. I think it's probably close to a 2.5 for me.
Yeah, I think I'm a little lower. I'm at like a 2, but especially if you do end up with some of those cave synergies, you'll want it.
At this point, I've kind of written off the cave synergies. I was unimpressed with what caves could do, so it makes me less interested in running caves, even though I haven't even seen them yet.
Yeah, and it'll depend on how free the caves are to pick up.
Yeah. Even if they are, I don't even want to put those cards that the caves did in my deck. They were just so underwhelming. They weren't even like a cookie card. It was just not exciting. Contested Game Ball. 2 mana for an artifact. Whenever you're dealt combat damage, the attacking player gains control of Contested Game Ball and untaps it. Pay 2, tap, draw a card, and put a point counter on the game ball. Then, if you have 5 or more point counters on it, sacrifice it and create a treasure token. Excuse me?
I mean, just a lot of card draw.
But they get it. Attacking player gains control of this card and untaps it. They then can tap it to draw.
Yeah, you need to make sure you're not. It's like a little mini version of the Monarch.
So if you have to hold on, I don't. Why do we have this card?
I mean, I'm not sure it's good, but it's if you are the aggressor, it's probably pretty decent.
Okay, so if you don't get hit back for 5 turns, you can dump 10 mana into this, draw a bunch of cards, and then it will sack itself for a treasure. Or as long as you're doing it for the most, right? If you're doing it for 3 or 4 of the times and they get it on the last hit and then it exacts itself and makes a treasure, maybe that's not the worst.
Yeah, it's also the kind of card that just forces other people to make bad attacks to try to get it away from you. So you can't draw all those cards. Um,
Yeah, but
Kind of
then
like the
they threw away their 2/2 or whatever, so it was a bad attack, but to go wide enough to get me, and then they get it and they get to draw a card. I mean,
but then you probably get to take it right back because they just made a bad attack to get it.
I understand.
Like, I don't know. I don't think the card's great, but I don't think it's. I think there will be decks that want this.
I mean, I think there's maybe one booty deck that wants this, and even then, I still think I would probably find a better use of that slot. Like for some more consistent removal, like we saw kind of multiple versions of, there was Chart a Course, there was the Divination, there was the 4-drop Divination. I would take any of those over this.
Yeah, and that's the advantage of it being colorless, right? It goes in the decks that can't play those cards.
Fair. But I think there's better. There just has to be. I don't think we're running this. I was thinking in the booty deck, but the booty deck is usually blue. So that's kind of where I went with that.
So yeah, I'm thinking opposite. I think Boros wants this, if anybody.
Boros tends to get swung back on and they don't block well.
But if your opponent is swinging back at you, they are doing what you want them to do in Boros. You want to get in the race. You
But
want them spending 2 mana just to draw a card and not affect the board.
But in Boros, you don't have the extra mana to spend because you're going 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop. Like you don't get to do you casting this on 2 is garbage for Boros, and
Agreed.
tapping it on turn 3 and 4 garbage on Boros. And by the time it's turn 5, they have something bigger than you, and you can't block to protect it.
This feels like a decent card to refill your hand in that deck.
I think white has better card draw. I don't remember specifically, but white has been getting really good card draw, and I think I'm still running this. This is not for me. I'm going to give it a 1.5. I think there's a booty deck, but and like bad removal, there will be a chance. There will always be times where I just didn't get the removal, and I will run this, but I will never be happy about it.
Yeah, I think I've got it as a 2. I don't think it's great, but I think there is going to be a deck where it's might be, there are going to be games where it's the best card in your deck.
We have disagreed pretty drastically on basically everything.
Yep.
Digzite Conservator. 2 mana for a 2/1 gnome. Exile up to 4 target cards from a single graveyard. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay, that seems fine. And it's a body. When it dies, you may pay 4 if you do discover 4 in addition. Wow. This seems very good.
Yeah, it's a nice little hate card for Descent, Descended, Fathomless Descent, all the other descents.
Banana.
Yeah, and to remove stuff potentially out of their yard for craft. And while doing so, you get your card back if you have the mana.
Yeah, and fueling your own Descent.
Yep.
And crafting that away. Like this kind of does it all, right? It checks all of the boxes. Those things are all very interconnected, which is cool. And I think this was a great way to keep your opponent off a lot of that stuff. There were some flashback pieces. There was like black graveyard stuff. There was a green graveyard return. I'm pretty high on this card. I think I would like to run this in most of my decks. This reminds me of the white bird from the werewolf set.
I'm not thinking of it.
There was like a 5 mana 3/4 bird that when it comes into play, remove 2 cards from a graveyard. And we didn't think it was going to be particularly good, but just removing their like hordes and stuff out of the graveyard was pretty relevant. So I'm very happy with this card. I'm gonna say this is honestly, I think I'm never cutting the first one of these. Like this feels like a 2-drop I really want to have. I'm gonna call this. I'm really high. I don't know why, but I'm gonna say this is a 3 for me.
It's a Soul Guide Griff. Was the card.
That one.
I still I like kind of agree overall with everything you said about the card. I just overall think it comes to a little bit less for me at a 2.5, but again, I'm not cutting it.
Dino DNA. This should
Nope.
be in. This is not in
Nope.
the draft set.
This is not in the set.
All right, moving on. That's a cool looking card, though. Uh, my bad. Wizards has changed their like website so that way the cards are really like mixed together, and it's impossible now to scrape the website and get all the appropriate cards. So yeah, sometimes cards get missed now because Wizards makes life difficult for me to get all of the images.
I wonder if we can scrape them off Scryfall.
The problem with Scryfall is like a lot of times the images are different colors and they have like the white border like edges around them because they get them from like random janky websites oftentimes that like got like actual spoiled.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Although eventually they get to the official images, but it might be too late.
Yeah. Disruptor Wandering Glyph. 4 mana for a 3/4 golem. Whenever it attacks, exile target card from an opponent's graveyard for 4 mana, a 3/4 that does that. I'm here for this. This is great. It's an artifact. I never like artifacts. I always think all the artifacts are draft chaff, but this set is really good.
It's really funny. I'm so opposite you on that. I think the artifacts are good, but there's just so many of them that I don't think you're going to lack for them, so I'm not giving them bonuses anymore.
I mean, they just feel strong.
Just gonna have plenty.
They feel more playable than most of them, like in other sets, I mean.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's a set that's kind of focusing on them.
Yeah.
They want you to play them.
But even usually when they do, it's usually filled with like equipment and a bunch of stuff that like, it was very like deck specific, whereas this is just an idiot. And it's like, even if you don't want artifacts, like, you know, their decks are going to be descended, whatever, and you're going to want to use this. I think it's great. You can just remove their equipment or their artifacts, preventing them from ever crafting for free. I think this is very cool. 2.5 for me.
I think I'm also at 2.5, although I think I'm a little lower on the card, just because the rate is bad. But the Exile is nice, and there will be decks that this hoses, so you will play it.
4 mana 3/4s were pretty normal not that long ago,
Yeah.
but I do think that it is a little low now.
Yeah.
Hoverstone Pilgrim, 5 mana for a 2/5 with flying and ward 2. You can pay 2, put target card from a graveyard onto the bottom of its owner's library. So cool for you if you have shuffle cards, and if this format goes long for milling yourself. I've definitely seen, was it Strixhaven? Do you remember that idiot 5 mana 4/5?
Yeah, the construct, yeah.
And so many decks just kept drawing and drawing, and they would have 2 constructs, so you could never mill them out, and they would just eventually just kill you, and that was their like only win condition. Oh, I hated that card so much.
I mean, it's not as bad as a Devious Cover-Up.
Yes, it's the exact same card. Like, same idea, same win, super annoying. But yeah, I think this is probably a fine card. You're getting a 2/5 flyer with ward for an okay rate, and allows you to not mill yourself, put your best cards in. You can even put their stuff on the bottom to just make sure they can't use it for descent or whatever. I think this is a 2.
Yeah, I think it's a 2. It's expensive for a 2/5, and paying 2 is unfortunate. Is a lot, but you do have spare mana, so every once in a while. So if you just occasionally get to snipe something, it's playable.
Hunter's Blowgun, 1 mana. Oh, I didn't really think about it, but with all of this Discover too, with that last card, you'll be cycling through your deck a little bit faster. So you could like cycle back through to those more powerful cards. Anyway.
Oh, and the format's got a lot of mill cards too, so.
Oh, yeah. So prevent self-mill, get your good stuff back. I like it. Hunter's Blowgun, 1 mana for an equipment, +1/+1. Equipped creature has Death Touch as long as it is your turn. Otherwise, it has Reach, and equipped for 2. I don't hate this. I like the Death Touch aspect. I like the Reach aspect. It's kind of fits all of the things. It lets you get your little duders in, lets you be more defensive. I actually like this.
I kind of like this, although I always tend to prefer Death Touch on my blockers. But obviously flipping the keywords would make sense because Reach is a purely defensive keyword.
Yeah.
Um, so
I don't
I think it's fine.
I don't mind them on my attackers because it just means I get to attack with the little things that can't get in, and I can sit back on my bigger stuff and they can't race me in the air. So I'm okay with that. In those board stally situations, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm trying to I'm reparsing this to see if technically this has reach all the time. Again, not that it matters because reach only matters when you're defending, but it's worded kind of strangely.
It says otherwise it has reach. So I
Yeah,
think
I
the
think
otherwise means it does not all the time.
that's the way I read it too, but it's not 100% clear.
It's not as good
And
because
it
the other
doesn't
one
matter.
drained for 2, but do you remember that equipment that gave death touch when it attacked alone or whatever?
Yeah, I
So
don't
that was like
remember
a
what it
really
was.
fast clock because of the drain mechanic, and they were incentivized to kill your creatures and block it because they wanted you to run out of creatures. So that's obviously way better. But this has the same effect of letting you get in with these tiny little idiots that they don't want to block, and it makes them block very
Yeah,
inefficiently.
I
So
just thought
rating wise, I think it's like a 2.5. I like that it's an artifact, so I'm willing to shift it up a bit.
yeah, I like it at 2.5. Do you think those darts are the poison darts from the dark poison dart frog or dipped in its poison?
The fucking frog is not poisonous, so no.
Only it is sometimes, just like this is sometimes.
No. That frog was
you have
not
to pay.
poison.
You have to pay 2 to give it that touch, and here you have to pay 2 to equip the creature to give it that touch.
It's either poisonous or it's not poisonous. So when you pay 2, that's because the frog went and jumped on a poisonous mushroom and rolled around and then jumped in your mouth. And that's how it became poisonous. And I am not paying 2 for that.
Well, when you put it that way, I'm not paying 2 for that either. But
I want my poisonous frogs to have poison. Death touch or whatever. That's what I meant. Anyway. Flavor fail. All right, I'm gonna let you read this one. That's a long word.
Mtgnerdgirl, the Great Door. It's a 3-mana legendary artifact. You can tap it to loot, draw, discard. Pay 4 and tap it to transform Mtgnerdgirl, the Great Door. Activate only if there are 4 or more permanent types among cards in your graveyard. And it transforms into the Core, a legendary land with Fathomless Descent. Tap, add X mana of any color, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard.
This is kind of too much and doesn't do enough for me for limited. Like, I
Yeah,
like looting, but I feel like I can get a better source of looting than a whole card and 3 mana.
agreed.
Like, I'd rather just find 1 card draw spell or something along those lines. And then you flip it for 4 mid to late game, because in order to complete the requirement on this, you can't do it on turn 4. It's going to take a while. And then you get to add some number of mana, 4, 5, 6. But even if it's 10, unless you are in the biggest of green decks, like, that's not going to be relevant at this point. So, eh?
Yeah, even in this set where looting is better than usual because just the act of discarding permanents triggers your descended, it's still not worth it. Like you're not going to ever need this much mana this late in the game, and because if you spent this much time trying to get there, you're probably dead.
Yeah, I don't hate either side of it. I just don't
Yeah,
want to spend this much time and mana invested into doing it.
yeah, exactly. Good card, just not worth the cost and effort.
So for me, 1.5.
Agreed.
I might want to loot. I might have space, but very rarely. The Roaming Throne. 4 mana for a 4/4 with Ward 2. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. The Roaming Throne is the chosen creature type in addition to its other creature type. If a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen type triggers, it triggers an additional time.
So I think I fought this thing in the most recent Zelda games.
Oh yeah, that's what made me quit the Zelda game, Breath of the Wild. I can't beat these in the wild. They're impossible. I don't know how to fight them. I tried for like hours and they just kill me, so I gave up eventually.
Yeah.
Thanks for re-traumatizing it. I finally moved past it and I finally came to terms with giving up on a game I very much enjoyed because I couldn't beat it, and you have to like, God, bring it up again. Sheesh. Rating wise, I think that this is a good card. It's a good rate. It's colorless. 4/4 for 4 with Ward 2. Like, that's going in my deck. Great.
Yeah, there are a number of decks where that's all this is, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But there will be some that this is better because you have the dinosaurs that trigger abilities, or Merfolk, or pirates. So
Yeah. And Alan's right. Now that we're done with the emotional damage, let's give it a rating. And I would say that this is a solid 3.5. It's a good rate with Ward 4. You can guarantee you can cast it. Like,
yeah, I think that's fair. 3.5 seems it's a good card.
like
I think if it wasn't colorless, I think it would probably just be a 3. But
I agree. But like, I would expect to see something similar in like 2 green. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't have my second green, and it sucks. And it makes it really hard for 3-color decks.
That one's a 4/5 with multiple keywords.
Now, but it didn't used to be.
No. God, 4 mana, 4/4. I mean, with the number of abilities, Masticore was fucking friggin' best card in Standard.
Someone else in the chat said you shoot it in the eye. I do know that. However, you have to be good at video games to do that, and I am not. I want to.
It's also a lot harder on a Switch than like if you had a mouse to aim and shoot.
Like I ended up getting a little bit better at it, but even the very beginning fighting little temples were so stressful. The very first one I died for sure, and like thought I wasn't going to be able to beat them. I ended up beating some of those, but they, about halfway through the game got a little too hard for me. I was struggling. Yeah, not good. All right, Runaway Boulder, 6 mana, flash and artifact. When it enters the battlefield, deal 6 damage to target creature and opponent controls. You can also just cycle this away.
Sure, if you need removal because you're playing like blue-green.
Well, the other thing too is that I like this because it's a little pricey, but you can bake in the cost of it for 2 things, right? So it's the thing, and then you can craft it away. So it's a removal spell that also gives you access to more resources if you need it. If your deck can take advantage of that, because this stays on the battlefield, right?
Yeah.
So this is perfect craft fodder. It's perfect sacrifice fodder. Tap X target artifacts to get +2/+0. So it's going to be synergizing really well with what the set wants to do in many ways. And so I think I'm willing to pay an extra colorless. Like 5 mana, 5 damage at sorcery speed is like kind of what our like mopier removal looks like these days. This is 1 extra, but it's flash and has some extra perks along the way for the rest of your decks. I'm willing to play that.
Yes, I'm not willing to give it credit for on the battlefield craft, because craft already, the ones you want, cost so much, and you've now spent a turn to play this and then a turn to craft because you're spending so much mana on it. What I will give it credit for is the fact that you can craft it out of the graveyard if you cycle it.
I think it's the same. Like, you're going to use this for removal. It's less things you have to get rid of out of your graveyard. Because if you do craft one of the things out of your graveyard that isn't this, right, that's ruining like your Fathomless Descents and your Descendants, if you have those. And again, if you don't have anything that cares about these things, I would not run this. But I think a good chunk of decks will.
I think the card's fine. I've got no problem playing it. I think I'm just mostly playing it for its face plus the cycling more so than anything else.
Okay. Yeah, I think the cycling's cute, but for the most part, I'll probably try to get my value out of the removal side of this. So I like the removal plus post-use. So I'm going to say that this is a 2.5. It's not great removal, but I'm excited to play it for synergy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Scampering Surveyor, 4 mana for a 3/4 gnome. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card or cave. Put that onto the battlefield tapped.
I think colorless fixing is always nice.
And it's not into your hand. It's ramp.
Yeah.
That's unusual. I can get behind this.
Yeah, I think you want to be in the big mana decks because ramping from 4 to theoretically 6 the next turn is a lot of times you don't care that much. But if you're in those dinosaur decks, absolutely.
I mean, it's an artifact, it's thinning, it's doing a bunch of stuff. I mean, I don't think I would need to be in the biggest of decks to want to run one of these, especially like if my 4-drop slot's just not full. I'm on board with this. I think this is like a 2.5.
Yeah, I can get behind 2.5. I'm a little hesitant because like if this is my turn 4 play, then my turn 5 6 mana play needs to make up for the fact that I just played a massively overcosted Dirtler at that point.
Yeah. I think I'm on a little bit on the lower side of it as well, of the 2.5, but for slightly different reasons, but still very close. All right.
This is very uncomfortable artwork.
Why?
Just, I don't know. I feel like people are going to see something in this.
It's one of those pirate spyglasses.
Yep. That's all it is.
I don't think it looks like a penis.
It absolutely does.
It does not look like. It looks more like anal beads if you want to get real technical. It does not look like a penis. I don't know. Maybe you've seen more penises than I have, but I don't think it looks like a penis. All right. Sorcerer's Spyglass. When it enters the battlefield, look at an opponent's hand and then choose a card name. Activated abilities of the chosen card name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. 1. This is nothing.
Yep. Pretty much never play this card limited even out of the sideboard.
So for when I upload this to YouTube, what is the rating on inappropriateness here? So normally it's like no inappropriateness, but there's like 10 levels. Is this like a 2?
I guess.
Sorry, YouTube. Sunbird Standard, 3 mana for a mana rock. Add a mana of any color, and you can also craft with 1 or more. 1 or more what?
That's what I guess 1 or more other permanents you control.
Are you sure it's not 1 or more 5 manas?
No,
it's like 5 and 10, 15 mana.
Yeah, that's really terribly worded.
It does say 1 or more other permanents.
That's awful. The way they wrote that, because it just looks like a typo.
And it turns into a flying, vigilant, hasty star, where its power and toughness are equal to the number of colors among exiled permanents crafted. Okay, so this is like, it's a mana rock when you need it, and then it's like a flying 2/2 or 3/3.
Yeah.
And also, you can tap for each color among the exiled cards used to craft it. You can add a mana of that color. I feel like at that point we don't care because we're crafting away our rock to turn this into a flyer. So I'm not really wanting to tap it for mana, but it's a nice bonus. I'm not gonna say no to it.
Yeah, and the backside is vigilance, so you get to attack and use it for mana.
True. The question on this card is 100%, do I want a 3 mana rock? And I'm willing to put it in a little bit. You know when you have the mana rock in your deck, and I would like to run this mana rock, but I need a cut, and I'm kind of too lazy to find what the correct cut is, and I don't really need this mana rock, so I'm just gonna cut it and hope my mana works out right. This, I'll probably now, because of the backside of this, run that mana rock, right? This will just make the 24th cut mana rock turn into the 23rd card.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Again, I think you're right though. I think the rating on this really depends on the front side, like because the back is just.
It's fine. I want a 2/2 flyer for free once my rock is no longer of use to me. 100%.
Exactly. But the back is only something I want because it's basically free.
Exactly. It will make the bubble rock no longer be bubble, and it will make it into the money.
Yes. me a second, but yes.
Swashbuckler's Whip, 1 mana for an artifact. Equipped creature has pay 2, tap target artifact or creature, and tap 8 and discover 10. It's an interesting late game mana sink. Does it do enough on its own to get me to 8 mana?
I mean, a 2-mana tapper? Or you turn something into a 2-mana tapper?
I think the answer is no. If this was if it was 6 for discover 6, like, or even like 6 mana for discover 5, I would probably be more into this. But like, I don't know. I don't know how often we're getting to 8.
Yeah, I just, this is all like very interesting, but just too inefficient.
Agreed. I think this is a no for me. 1.5.
Agreed.
Tarian's Soul Cleaver. That looks like it hurts. 1 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature has vigilance. Whenever another artifact or creature is put into a graveyard from the battlefield. Doesn't say that you control.
Yep.
Put a +1/+1 counter on the equipped creature. Huh. I was about to just no sir this, just because, like, it takes a lot of work to get counters on this, and you get nothing to begin with. But, like, creatures from anywhere, that is now intriguing. Trades become 2 counters?
Yeah. No.
No?
Yes, I'm just thinking trades would, but not if you're trading the creature off. Because the counters don't go on the Soul Cleaver, they go on the creature.
Correct, but if you plan to trade with that creature, you move the Soul Cleaver off because it already has, it's already the size. The Soul Cleaver is not boosting it.
Yep. Yeah, you got all the artifact tokens work with this.
Oh, it says artifact, not just creature. So yeah, your maps, your treasure tokens. Yeah. Okay, I like that. Your mana rock that turns into a bird when it dies. Yeah, this is cool. I think I would run this. It might be too slow. I don't know. It's gonna depend on how combat oriented I think this set is. It's gonna depend on how long the set plays. But I think I'm running this. I think this is like a 3.
Yeah, I've got this as a 3 as well.
And the funny thing is it's not a 3. It's going to be a 1, or it's going to be a 4.5, and we just don't know which one that is.
Yeah, probably.
Right? Like, this is the card that's premium to be like, oh, I thought that was going to be good, and it is not. Or vice versa. It's like, oh, I thought this would be too slow, but it just gives you infinite value. So who knows?
Yeah. And it's a rare, so it's hard to even get the true answer on that.
It'll take a while. So I'm going to give it a 3 for like an average performance. I think it'll be decent. I don't think it'll be bad, and I don't think it'll be amazing, but we shall see. The Millennium Calendar, 1 mana for a legendary artifact. Whenever you untap 1 or more permanents during your untap step, you put that many time counters onto this. Pay 2, tap, double the number of time counters on the calendar. When there are 1,000 or more time counters, sacrifice it. Each opponent loses 1,000 life. So we found the cookie card.
It's flavorful, and the card I never, ever want to play against or with in paper.
I 1,000%, literally, plan to play this every single time I open it, and I will get a cookie when I kill someone with it. And I look forward to them finding their main deck artifact removal when I'm at 900 points.
To be fair, you'll never get above 500, right? Because then you'll just double it to win.
Well, it depends. What if I'm at 400 and I double it?
Yeah. You could be.
Like, you could just be just shy, right?
You could be just short if you've doubled weirdly. If you've doubled in a different. Yeah, I guess it depends how many things you have on tapping all the time.
Yeah, if you get to 200 in whatever way, that goes to 4, then it goes to 8, and then you've untapped a bunch, and then I think it's plausible to be at 900, 950, and then just die. This will be the number 1 cookie attaining card. This is Not playable, but I will play it every time. So it's a 3 because I'm never cutting this card.
Yeah,
Done.
this card's like a 1 in online play and like a -10 in paper. Because
But it's a
tracking this will
3.
be hell.
It's a 3 though because we have to play it. That's the if you're not going to cut it, it's a 3. That's the
I am though.
I don't make the rules. Threefold Thunder Hulk, 7 mana for a 0/0. When it enters the battlefield with 3 counters on it, whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, create a number of colorless 1/1 gnome creature tokens equal to its power. Sacrifice another artifact, put a +1/+1 counter onto it. Okay, it's expensive, but okay, so it's a 3/3. When it ETBs, it makes 3 1/1s.
Yep. So you're getting
You can
6/6.
then eat those 1/1s, make it into a 6/6, attack, make 6 1/1s.
Yep, and you have the mana to do it because you spent 7 on this.
Yeah. It's cute. I feel like I'm probably running this in one deck and one deck only. Well, I guess it's multiple decks, but it's the deck that really wants to like tap artifacts.
Yeah, I think that that deck definitely wants this card. I think the card is pretty good on its own. 7 mana for 6/6 that then one attack gets you to at least 9/9 worth of value.
But there was a 7/7 or 7 drop that came in as a 5 and a 3/3, and you said you'd rather just be an 8/8.
I would rather this be a 6/6 that then attacks and makes 6 1/1s rather than 3 and 3 1/1s.
So of course you would just rather. That's like comparing the other one, saying I wish it was a 6/6 that also came into play with a 3/3. Of course you would. You just said that you didn't take away the good part. If this was a 6/6, it doesn't come into play with the 3 1/1s.
No. I'm saying it attack to make them. That's fine if you don't keep. I said I would. I was still wrong because what I should have said was I would rather this be a 6/6 that when it attacks it creates half and you get 3. So you still end up with 9 on 9, or I guess on the ETB you end up with 9 instead of, or on the first attack you end up with 9.
Yeah, but that's still just a straight upgrade. Like you're no longer just moving the numbers around. You're having it just come into play easier. You don't have to commit the mana to add the counters. Like you're just straight upsiding it.
No, because I'm taking you get 6/6 worth of power, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just putting that all on one creature.
Yeah, but then you're having it make 3 1/1s after the fact, where that's part of the mana you have to commit to make it do the thing. So it wants you to put those onto it for an additional 6 mana. You're just removing that from needing to be done.
No, because that's why I changed it to create half tokens to only make 3. Because if the current state, if I pay 6, I'm making 6 1/1s.
I understand that, but I still think that is an upside. Like the way you have reoriented it, I agree it is better, but I think that's just because you just made the card better.
Well, I mean, yes, I think the other one I also made the card better by doing it that way.
But all you did was reallocate the power that was already there. This is functionally changing how the card works.
This is more of a more complicated card to try to do that with.
Because you're changing that you have to spend the 6 mana post combat. Now, if you were to say, okay, we make it a 6/6, it creates half, but you have to spend 2 mana to make each one, that might be closer. Like you actually have to pay mana.
That card is atrocious.
But I think that is getting closer to the even because you have to commit the mana to do the thing. But either way, I think that this is okay in some of those decks, but I'm not super excited for a 3/3 and 3 1/1s for 7 mana.
Yeah, I don't think it's amazing. But it's colorless. It's probably playable.
I definitely think that it's playable. And I think there will be some number of decks, a good number of them, because artifacts seem super relevant in a ton of different decks, that I'll be very happy to run this. So probably averaging out to be like a 3 for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, Throne of the Grim Captain. Tap, mill 2 cards, craft with a dinosaur, a merfolk, a pirate, and a vampire. Excuse me?
No thanks. I don't care what the back of the card says. It could say win the game. No thank you.
It's a 7/7 with Menace, Trample, Lifelink, and Hexproof. Whenever the captain attacks, each opponent sacrifices a non-land permanent. Then you may put an exiled creature card used to craft with this captain onto the battlefield under your control, tapped and attacking. It does indeed say you win the game on the other side.
Yep, I still don't want it.
So I think we found a cookie card. I also don't want it. However, I intend to try to do it.
Yeah, it doesn't even seem fun. It's just jam 5 colors into a deck for no reason other than this one card.
Well, each
And hope I
color
don't
had a
die
dinosaur.
first.
Each color had a dinosaur.
Okay.
So pirates and vampires are in black. So I feel like your black X, probably black blue. So Dimir makes this work. And you got 2 dinosaurs probably across those 2 colors. You get merfolk plenty. You get plenty of vampires and pirates.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one pirate in black.
Really?
Yep, I just looked because I didn't. Pirates are mostly blue-red.
Oh, they're blue-red? Okay, so blue. Blue is still covered in black-blue, though. So you get the vampires, and then the blue gives you the merfolk and the pirates, and the dinosaurs are split across the 2. You get a couple of dinosaurs in some of them.
I don't think blue has. Oh yeah, blue does have the one island cycling dinosaur.
I think almost every color had 1 dinosaur.
Yeah, you're right. There are a couple.
And I think that'll be easier to come across than getting like a vampire in.
Yeah.
You know.
You're definitely right on that.
And yeah, like you could also just be a 3-color card. Like there was 2 colorless cards that let you get lands out of your battlefield or onto your battlefield or put it on top of your library. The Drover guy. So okay. Anyway, this is taking way too long. This is a 1. However, it's a 3. It's a 3 if I find it in pack 1.
This is a 0.
3 if I find it in pack 1 because we're gonna make it work. I'm gonna need a lot of cookies.
You're playing like 13 land cyclers.
Yeah, why not? Treasure map, 2 mana for a 1 mana tap scry 1. Put a landmark counter on treasure map. Then if there are 3 or more landmark counters, remove those counters, transform the map, and add 3 treasure tokens. It becomes a tap for a colorless, and you can sacrifice a treasure to draw a card. Slow.
Yeah. Reprint from original Ixalan. It was slow but pretty good. There, but that was a relatively slow format, I believe. If I remember right.
Yeah. I think it's okay. Yeah,
I don't think this card's amazing, but if you're trying to do, 5-color Throne of the Grin Captain nonsense, then you've got a lot of treasures here.
It's true. I think this is a playable card, but I'm not excited. I'm going to give it a 2.
I think I'm a little higher, maybe just because I remember it being good. I think I've got it like a 2.5.
All right. Moving on to the lands, the last of the colorless cards, we get to check out the caves. We've got a captivating cave. It taps for a colorless. You can pay 1, add a mana of any color to help you cast your vampires, dinosaurs, merfolk, and pirates. You can pay 4, sacrifice the cave, put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature. I do like that, so I will be playing this in any of my 2-color decks that don't really need mana, because I like the idea that, it's okay to just throw in 1 colorless mana into a 2-color deck, and then you get a benefit once you've sort of maxed out the mana that you need.
Yeah, the other important thing to note on this card is in the bottom left corner, the rarity is land. So this is like one of the cards that can replace a basic in the pack.
Yes.
It's not common.
Most of the caves are that.
Yeah, I think there's like a cycle of them. There's like 6. There's one of each color, and this. It's about half the caves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, it could be a mythic or whatever. It doesn't change whether we want to run the thing, right?
No. It's more just pointing out like how where these are going to show up. Like there are no common caves, so you're not likely to see two caves in a pack for any of that thing that matters. It's just more just for people's information.
Cool. I mean, I assume the rare caves still show up in that rare slot, or
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
in
yeah.
the land slot
No, the rare caves show up as a rare.
as a rare. Okay.
Yeah, same for the uncommon ones.
So that's what I thought you were saying when you were talking about the rarity that it's going to show up in the whatever.
Gotcha.
It felt like we were taking a tangent for a reason, and I was trying to figure out what that reason was. I like lands that turn into counters when I don't need them anymore. I think that's just it for me. And I was going to say if it was just colorless, you just do that in a 2-color deck, but it also filters your land, and I want to do that in a deck where I also need fixing and splashing, so I think this is fine.
Yeah, I think it's like a 2. I'll play it, but I'm not actively looking for it.
I think I'm a little higher on it. I'm going to give it a 2.5. The Cavern of Souls. The Cavern of Souls enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, add a colorless, or you can tap, add 1 mana of any color, spend the mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type. It's interesting to see this reprint.
Yeah, I mean, this is a constructed reprint. It's a mythic, so it's not going to come up much. It's fine. If you're heavily tribal, then sure.
I think I'd still rather have one of the colors of my tribe, just so that way I don't get wrecked on that. Because it's not really going to help unless you have like 3 color. You know, if you're running the wedge lords or whatever, if they have those, I haven't even gotten to the multicolor yet, but I don't think I'm into that.
No, and it's also just and obviously because it's a reprint, but it's just odd that Cavern of Souls is not a cave.
I'm gonna give it a 1.
Yep. It's a rare first picked 1 because you're going to take it because it's worth a lot.
Cavernous Maw. Taps for a colorless, you can pay 2. Cavernous Maw becomes a 3/3 elemental creature token until end of turn. It's still a cave. Activate only if the number of other caves you control plus the number of cave cards in your graveyard is 3 or greater. Interesting. So we're seeing cave payoffs on the caves themselves.
Yeah.
I don't love the cave cards, so I'm going to have to see a lot of caves that are doing really good stuff for me to be interested in this. And this is okay, but I'm not really here for this. The average deck is certainly not going to want this, so this is just a 1 for me.
Yeah, I mean, this card is actively good if you can reliably activate it, but I don't think that's going to happen a lot. And if it does, it will be in your deck. You'll know pretty quickly, and you'll be the only one that wants this.
Yeah, the other thing too is like, even if you can reliably activate it, what did you give up to draft a bunch of other caves, right? Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem worth the squeeze at this point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I said, yeah, the colored cave cycle is pretty decent.
Command Tower. I'm guessing this is also not in the set, but I'm glad we get to look at the art.
Yep, not in the set.
I wish Wizards would stop messing with their card displays. Echoing Depths. Land cave that can tap for colorless. You may have it enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of any land card in a graveyard, except it is a cave in addition to its other types. No, thank you.
Yeah. Sure, there's a way to use this in constructed, but not limited.
I wish it didn't say a land in a graveyard, because then you could steal their like god, or their god lands or whatever.
Yeah, if it didn't say that, this would be broken in older formats.
So, this is a 1. Forgotten Monument. Taps for a colorless. Other caves you control have tap, pay 1 life, add a mana of any color. I thought this was to say pay 1 life, like make your opponent lose a life or something, and I was about to get excited, and now I'm not excited.
All your caves become city mana confluence.
Yeah, that's a 1. Hidden. Enters the battlefield tapped, adds a blue, pay 5, sacrifice it, discover 4, activate only the sorcery. This is a fine card to run as a 1 of. I think this is comes into play tapped, so it's takes a little bit of a hit there, but I think that this is very playable. Probably Probably a 2.5. I'm a big fan of the
Yeah.
land redraw stuff.
Yeah, they seem to usually play pretty well. I like this as a 2/5. This is a full cycle, every one of which says the exact same thing, just a different color.
Discover 4, 2.5 for the Hidden Courtyard. Hidden Necropolis, dope art. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Uh, Discover 4, the Hidden Nursery. Discover 4. That's also really pretty. The Hidden Volcano. Yep. Pit of Offering. Enters battlefield tapped. When Pit of Offerings enters the battlefield, exile up to 3 cards from graveyards. Hello. And it can tap for colorless. You can tap add 1 mana of any of the exiled card's colors. Yes, this is awesome.
Yes, you can exile your own stuff if you need the right colors if they don't have it. Or you can, if you're playing a mirror color-wise, you can get the colors from their stuff, or just basically have a colorless land that messes up their descend and craft.
I'm going to exile 1 card from my graveyard, right? And then, 2 cards from theirs that are permanents to wreck their whole, descended, fathomless descent synergies and their artifacts to mess up their crafting synergies. And then you can just exile your 1 dirtily idiot that you don't need and make sure that you can always produce mana. Or you can just, get a 3rd piece of theirs and just use it as a colorless mana from there on because it produces, one of whatever they're running, assuming that their 2 colors don't match one of yours, which there's a really good chance that it might. So I think that this is actually fantastic, and I will run this in every deck. This is a 3 for me.
Yeah, it's also nice that unlike almost every other card in the set, it's exile up to 3 target cards, not permanents. So like on your own, you can exile a spell, something that won't affect your descend.
Yeah. It also hits, like there was a couple flashback cards. There are, cards that even if your opponent doesn't have any of those graveyard things, there are like the fathomless stuff. There are spells that bring things back into play. So yeah, just very happy to have this for free on a colorless land.
Yep.
I think it is a 3. Do you agree?
Agreed.
Promising Vein. It's a colorless cave. You can pay 1, sacrifice it, search your library for basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield, tapped, and then shuffle. So we just want it for fixing. It's like
a weird Evolving Wilds.
It's a weird Evolving Wilds that also helps with cave synergies if you want them.
And also is an untapped land for colorless, which Evolving Wilds isn't, like it's always tapped.
Yeah, because sometimes you might just want to hit your 4th land and don't care what color it is, and then Evolving Wilds wrecks you when you top it. So this kind of gets rid of that, but also makes life a little bit more difficult to get the colored land. I like this card for fixing purposes, for thinning. I don't really care that it's a cave, and I don't mind it just coming in as a colorless. So I'm going to say this is a 2.5.
Yeah, it feels like it belongs right around where Evolving Wilds does because it has both positives and negatives.
Agreed. All right, we've got some rare lands. Enters the battlefield tapped, produces white or blue, and for 3, until end of turn, it becomes a 2/3 white-blue bird with flying and is still a land. Whenever this attacks, create a map token. Hello, Nurse.
Yeah, this card is great. It's cheap to activate. It has evasion, so you're happy to spend mana to activate it, and you're just making things at the same time, making maps.
Pooping out value. Let's go. This card is awesome. You obviously kind of need to be in those colors, but if you're, you're always rating cards based on the assumption that you're interested in playing this card because you're in those colors. So, like, you can't rate a generic red card a 0 because you're not playing red, right? Like, that doesn't change how good that card is in its own thing. So, rating wise, I think that this is fantastic. I am so high on this.
Yeah, I think I've got like a 3.5.
I have it at a 3.5, but like a high 3.5.
Yeah.
Like I'm tempted to give it a 4, but the activation each turn is costly. I'm very, very excited about this card.
And also you'll see on all of these Restless cards, the art is pretty cool, right? It shows you what the creature is.
Yeah. I did notice that the other one was a bird. So this is a 4 mana activation, and it becomes a 3/3 white llama creature and still a land. Whenever the Restless attacks other creatures you control, get +1/+1 till end of turn. So it's like the unicorn.
Is this like? I mean, I love the art, right? That it looks like the llama, but does it look like that all those fields were put together in like Carcassonne? Like the way they're like all segmented.
Yeah. Someone in chat says extract of llama. Love it. Wrong lever. This one is a little bit more susceptible to just being blocked. Like a 3/3 after you activate on 4 and 5 is not great. And I don't really want to be activating this on 4 because I'm not progressing the board in any way. So this feels like a really late game thing. And at that point, it'll die. So I'm not as high on this. I still think it's great. I'm still never cutting this. I think this is a 3.
I think it's a 3 as well. It's nice that it's doing what these colors want, like with the buffs matters. You know, making all of your creatures trigger those if your power is higher than base power, etc. type effects, but that didn't seem as well supported as we would like it to be. So I like it as a 3.
Moving on, another 4 mana activation. It becomes a 4/4 blue-black shark creature token with Death Touch. Whenever it attacks, target player mills 4 cards. Okay, so now your 4 attacks a little bit cleaner. I like that. 4 cards is a lot of mill, honestly, and you might want to mill yourself. I think this is solid.
Yeah, I think this card's very good. 4/4 Death Touch is pretty often get a trade for 2 things. And the mills can work both ways. So I like the fact that you've got some synergy there.
Yeah, rating wise, I don't like it as much as the bird still. So I'm going to say that this is also a 3.
Agreed, but a better 3 than the llama.
Agreed. We need to move to a 10 scale for sure. Because that 3 and 4 is just clumpy now that there are no more 1s and 2s, really. I missed the draft chaff a little bit.
I missed it actually being hard to get full set of playables.
4 mana, this one becomes a 3/4 red-green dinosaur until end of turn. When it attacks, target attacking creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Untap that creature. Why is the dinosaur smaller than the Demir idiot?
Dark, yeah.
And like this dinosaur is legitimately a mountain. Like you're telling me this is a 3/4 right now? And I would be happier if it could give any creature +2/+0 and untap it. This feels still good. I just
or at least if it could give itself.
That's what I was saying.
Oh yeah. Like yeah, I'm not a fan of this card.
I'm still a fan of it. Like,
oh yeah. Wrong. Sorry,
I'm just saying
comparatively.
Exactly. Relative to the other ones, I do think it is a little bit on the mopier side. I still think it's like. I still think I probably like it more than the llama.
I think I like the llama better, but it's very
it's very close. For me, it's like llama this thing. So I'll still give this a 3, but it's on the lower of the 3s. And then now we've got the Vents. It's a 2/3 black and red insect with menace. Whenever it attacks, you may discard a card, and if you do, draw a card. I'm into this. This is menace makes it a little easier to attack. It's 1 less to activate. I think this is good.
Yeah, it's not as good as the bird. Probably not as good as the shark, but close.
Yes.
But better than the llama and the dinosaur.
Yes. So we are on point, except for flipping the llama and the dinosaur.
Yeah, and
also a 3.
I could go either way on those, really.
Great.
Yeah.
And now we move on to the Sunken Citadel. It is a cave, enters the battlefield tapped, and as it enters, choose a color, add a mana of the chosen color, add 2 mana of the chosen color, spend it only to activate abilities of land. Okay. That's kind of cool because there was a bunch of caves that like a bunch of cards
All-
that flip into lands that you have to then reactivate.
Yep, and then all the Discover caves.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I think that's fine, and I like that this fixes. So this will be a good one to have in any of the 3-color decks. Like, I'm happy to have a land come into play that when I draw it, it helps smooth your opening hands, which is really important to me, because you just get to pick whichever color you need the most. Whether that's your splash color or your second color, because you only have like black, black, blue, and you are splashing a green, then, you know, you can pick green if you have them both, and if not, fine. It increases the number of hands you can keep at 7, which I'm a big fan of, so...
Yeah, now just for people not like only listening but not really watching, this is a rare, so don't expect to see this often.
It's a little underwhelming for a rare, honestly, but I think this is a 2.5. I'm probably not cutting this often.
Agreed.
All right. The Volatile Fault, tap for a colorless, and it can also pay 1 to tap. It destroy a target non-basic land an opponent controls. That player may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield. You create a treasure token. The gods are not indestructible in their land form. I just want to throw that out there. This is a good backup in every deck.
Yeah, it's also you're also 2 for 1ing yourself. Or 1 for 0ing yourself.
What do you mean?
Right, because you're destroying a land, but they get to replace their land, you don't.
But you're not destroying a land, right? You're destroying a card that got flipped into a land that will flip back into a card. They didn't put that god in there in a land slot.
Yeah, again, I'm not putting this in my deck to deal with the occasional mythic.
It's not just the occasional mythic. There was rares that did the same thing by like a lot.
Oh,
there
were rares that flip, but the ones that I'm scared of are mythics.
Yeah, but this is just a colorless land that lets you deal with their thing. It turns your land into a removal for an actual card. You use it for colorless until you have enough land, and then you use it to blow up an actual permanent.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of this. I don't think I'm fine to have this in my sideboard in case I see that stuff, but I'm never starting this card.
I am starting it in every deck. I think that this is a 3.
Yeah, I think this is on its face, this is a 1.
This is just straight up free. It's like when you get to put your like the built-in artifact and enchantment removal on your like your random creatures or whatever. It's 100% free.
But that is a free 1 for 1. This is not.
It is a 1 for 1. You're trading your land late in the game for a card that was a permanent and letting them flip it for a basic, which they don't need anymore.
Yeah, I don't like giving people extra cards.
It's like Path to Exile or whatever. One of them gains you life and the other one gives you them land. It's like the land one. It is targeted path, but you don't have to sit on path forever. This is just a land you get to use and then turn it into something when you don't like it. How's that bad?
Because path hits everything. This hits a couple things if they happen to draw them.
But this is just a land. It's just a colorless land. So even if it misses those things, it's still just one of your 17 lands. Right? You're not spending anything to get the thing. You don't have to put path in your deck as part of your 23.
Yeah, I'm just, you never played Field of Ruin, you never played Tectonic Edge, you never played any of these in Limited.
Because there wasn't a cycle of 20 lands or 20 cards that turn themselves into lands.
I understand what you're saying, I just disagree.
All right, fair enough. We shall see. I'm going to give it a 3. I'm going to run it. You think it's a 1?
Yes.
All
but
right.
A good sideboard card.
That is the end of our colorless, guys. Thank you so much. Surprisingly enough, I think this is the most Yanks and I have ever disagreed in a set review. Not particularly close. And even though this had half as many cards, this was the longest of the set reviews. So leave us some comments down below. Let us know what you think of these colorless cards. And I'm really excited. Usually this is the most boring video of the bunch, but this was really good. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time for our final one for multicolor.